Hey, what's up guys? Disney Nuts here. How you guys doing? Today I'm going to show you how I shot this. Okay, pretty cool, right? Now this video is pretty quick. We're going to be moving pretty fast because I'm just basically going to show you the settings, the location, and then we're going to edit the shots so you guys can get them posted out there as fast as possible. Okay, so when we talk about lens for these type of shots, I actually use my Sigma lens, which is this lens right here. And the good thing of this lens is that it's actually a 2.8 because we want to use a lens that is wide as possible. And the reason for that is we're going to treat this type of shots like a dark ride. So this way we're going to set the shutter speed to a pretty low speed, for example 1/20th, 125. And the reason for that is that we want to be able to stop the motion of the projections on Tower of Terror. But at the same time, we don't want to go too slow so it comes up blurry. Now I'm using this lens because it's a 2.8, but if you have a nifty 50, go ahead and use that. Now if you're using a lens that comes with the Canon camera, which is the stock one, you'll know that as soon as you zoom in, the f-stop is going to get smaller, which means the number is going to go higher. So if that's the case, just move your tripod forward and back, but try to keep the f-stop the lowest number possible because that will help to be able to get the best quality possible when you take these type of shots. Now as for locations, we're going to be walking down Sunset Boulevard and there's a couple places that you can shoot this from. Obviously one of the coolest parts is one from the end of the street, and that's obviously a really good option. And for that one, the good thing is that you don't need to be worried about having people in front of you because since you're basically in a pretty straight angle, you can get some really good shots. Now if you get closer towards Tower of Terror, you're going to notice that you'll have to shoot much more in an angle and you'll have the possibility of having people in front of you. So what I did for these types of shots, and which I recommend for yourself, is look for the places where there's tape on the floor, which is the place that they designate for walkways, and park yourself right across from behind the tape. This way you prevent the possibility of having people in front of you and having heads and stuff like that. Okay, so when we talk about equipment, yes, you're going to need your tripod because we're going to be shooting at a pretty low speed, in this case 1/20th of a second, and it's pretty difficult to be able to hold it handheld and be able to take those shots. If you want to give it a try, go ahead, but if you want to be safe and you got limited time to take these shots, take a tripod and adjust it accordingly. But anyway, with that said, let's head over there and let's talk about the camera settings on site. Let's go. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the settings a little bit. So I'm going to be shooting in manual mode, and the reason for that is that I want to lock down a couple of things here. One being the shutter speed. Since there's stuff that is moving, like the projections, we got to put it fast, but at the same time we don't do it too fast that it comes out blurry. So I'm going to be putting it at 1/20th of a second. Then on my f-stop, I'm going to go as wide as possible so I let as much as light into the lens, and that way I can capture and freeze the as better quality as possible. Now the ISO I'm going to leave as auto, but if you want, you can probably set that to 3200 or 1600 if you want. But the shutter speed is key for what I want to put in there for the photo. Okay, so let's go check out the photos. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom and we brought in 4 images, the ones that I'm going to show you how to edit today. There's the first, there's the second, third, and fourth, and they're all taken at different distances. Okay, so this was the one I posted on my Instagram account, which a couple people were asking for, is how I shot it. And here it is, just as I specified on the settings, 1/20th of a second, f2.8 and 1250, setting the ISO as automatic. Now again, I went to this seasons grading like 5 times to be able to get these settings which worked for me. So again, if it doesn't come out in the first bat, don't feel frustrated. That's what makes this fun, where you actually can go out and try different settings and different things, because maybe what works for me doesn't work for you and vice versa. Okay, so now there is a lot of stuff happening, so I do take a bunch of shots and then filter out the good ones, because many times what looks sometimes good on the viewfinder doesn't look really good when you put it into the computer. So
feel free to take as many shots as you want, and if you only get 4 or 5 out of them, that happens to me also. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. I'm not going to touch anything here on the temperature tint since everything looks color-wise looks good. I am going to bring down the highlights to bring down a little bit of that shine that the Tower Terror has, but not too much that looks like this and looks dull. Let's bring it down to something like this. Shadows, I'm going to touch them just a little bit, but not enough that it, you know, shows all the stuff. Again, we're going to focus onto this, and as you saw in the photo, we're actually cropping the sides. So then one that I like next is the blacks. Bring down the blacks, and that way hides the sky and makes this pop a little bit more. Now I could bring up the whites as well, and that will make the Tower Terror pop, or I can bring up the exposure, whichever you like and whichever is to your preference. Now I did these first, but don't forget also to come down here onto the lens correction, which I already did previously when I imported. I turned this on, which is where it automatically detects the lens that you're using and does the correction in case the sides here, and does the remove chromatic aberrations and stuff like that. So make sure you do that as well, even though I don't mention it here in this video. Other stuff here that you want to touch if you want to go for different types of looks and feels, then you can go ahead and tinker with these a little bit. As for the clarity and the whole photo, I don't like to touch it too much, but we will go over the lasers with that, and we'll talk about that in a second. Dehaze, if you want to play with that, go ahead. Vibrance, I'll maybe just bring up the vibrance a little bit, but I'll usually leave the saturation in 0. Okay, so to make these lasers pop, there's a trick that I use, which is basically the same thing that I do for the water, and I set it to clarity, and I select my brush and I put it 100%, and I put it pretty high. Let's put 70, and we can make this, doesn't need to be full blast, and I just basically paint over the lines, and you're going to see how they make some pop out. This is here, and you can see how it sort of like makes those lasers really stand out. There we go. And here's actually where I painted over using the clarity at 100%. Bam, there you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and take another photo. This is the one I actually took recently. This was actually on a couple of days ago, but I love that the lasers are shooting up from the top, so we're going to do the same thing that we did with the other one to make those pop out. So let's go ahead quickly here and just adjust these settings here. Nothing fancy. Again, these are my preferences. If you want to adjust to what you like, then feel free to do so. Again, make sure to come down here and select your lens corrections. Now to make these lasers pop, just like we did with the other one, we're going to select the brush here, put the clarity in 100. Again, this is the default, but if you, for example, select any of the other ones and you want to modify it, then you can do that as well. Like I can come here and say I want to do clarity, so it doesn't necessarily, if it doesn't say clarity here, that's fine. My brush size, I'll put like the 72. Size doesn't need to be anything fancy, but I will turn off the auto mask. I'm just going to basically paint over these lines like this. Now you can see how it makes them pop, which is what I love of the clarity tool. Okay, and we could do the same thing down here on the edges, just on the edges, because we don't want to do it all on the center, because then it'll look all weird and stuff like that. We don't want to ruin the Tower Terror projections. So just paint here, and paint here to show you what we painted. Okay, so we painted the lines and we painted the edges here, and that I do it by selecting here, show the mask overlay. Bam, there you go, guys. Okay guys, so that's it. That's how you take that shot, and hopefully you can use these settings on your visit to Hollywood Studios so you can take this shot as well. And again, feel free to try different settings, different lenses, and different editing styles, whatever suits you. Again, this is just what I like to use. It's not the written in stone, and it's not probably the best one for many people out there, but this is what I like to do. So do the same thing with your photos. Okay guys, so again, if this is watching my video for the first time, my name is Disney Nuts, and I do videos and editing stuff from inside the parks, as well as Instagram stuff, related stuff, and other food reviews and other fun stuff, anything related to Disney. So if you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to get notified for the next video. Until then guys, stay awesome.